Okay, we're going to use this payroll problem to demonstrate the if statement. If statements really give your spreadsheet power. They're a little complicated. They're logical. You pretty well have to follow the rules each and every time. It's probably the most difficult thing that you will do in this class. Anyway, starting, if you open this payroll problem up, total hours, we'll go ahead and get that real quick. Auto sum button, which I don't know why mine keeps doing that. Shouldn't really do that. Maybe something in there that's messing it up. So I went the alternate route of where I highlighted the area, and then whichever the last blank space is, we'll put the total in it. Then I copied it down. Number 2 down here says sort by name. You know, they're not in alphabetical order right now. So you can highlight all the data there. Go to data up at the top. Go to sort. Sort by employee. A to Z, which is, of course, the alphabetical way to do it. And when I clicked on that, it automatically put things in alphabetical order, Kathy Buckley through James White, and swap the data with it. When you highlight the data, a lot of times it'll do it without having to highlight it, but I'm just a habit of doing that. Finally, it says link the total hours and deductions over to the payroll sheet. So we highlight it, do our standard linking thing, right-click on the mouse, click on the copy button, get the marquee, click on the payroll data tab down at the bottom, click on B7 where the first item link goes, paste special, paste link. We've done that before. Okay, over here in deductions, back to the timesheet, get the deductions. Nobody likes deductions from their payroll, but it happens a lot, as you'll find out. Put the cursor where you want it, in this case G7, right click, paste special, paste link. Okay, we're pretty well done with the timesheet. Put the cursor in D7. Now here we go, overtime hours. We've got to figure out how many overtime hours the people have. The law says anything over 40 in a regular, week is overtime pay. So we want to come up with a formula to figure that out. I've actually got them down here on lines 21 and 23. So I want to come up with an if statement that looks like that. I'm going to go ahead and delete the question mark just to avoid any trouble there. So we go to FX up at the top, find if. It's usually in the box there because it's a very common function that we use. We move it down a little bit, get it out of our way. A logical test, that's what you got to do. If you say the word if something happens this, something happens that, then that's what's going to be on the particular line here. Alright, total hours is located in B7. Okay, that's where we got a test. So we say B7, and there's a lot of different arguments. You're going to see some of them in the books. Greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, not equal to are the most common. So we're saying if B7 is greater than or equal to 40, then the person's going to have overtime. You notice the word true came up to the right of that particular line. This is where we write whatever we want the computer to test. Second line, the middle line, we'll click down on value if it's true. If that condition is true, what do we want to happen? Okay, well, if it's true, then we want to figure out how many overtime hours there are. So we say B7. You can click on B7 or type B7, doesn't matter, minus 40. So that'll give us a number of hours over 40. You notice on the right-hand side, 5 came up. That's how many overtime hours Kathy Buckley has. And if it's false, then they don't have any overtime hours, and we want to put 0 there. Be sure you put the 0 and not the O. And we click on OK. Notice 5 came up. That's how many hours over 40 she had. It is a copyable formula. You can copy it down. Okay, so we got everybody's overtime pay there. Overtime hours. Now let's figure overtime pay. We'll go back to down here at the bottom. It says overtime pay. Don't necessarily need an if statement. We could do the same thing. If B7 is greater than 40, then we could have a couple of formulas. But the rule of multiplication is if any of the numbers are zeros, then it's all going to be zero, so we don't really have to have an if statement here. So we can put if 1.5, that's time and a half from the company, asterisk, which is our multiplication symbol, how much they make per hour, that's C7 times how many hours overtime they got, G7. And click on the green check mark. So her overtime pay, that's how much above her regular pay that she's gonna make. It also is a copyable formula. We'll copy it down. Notice the people that had 0 overtime hours get 0 overtime pay. All right, gross pay here, with a question mark. It is a if statement, big time if statement. Click on if. Okay, same condition. If B7 is greater than 40, that means that person has overtime. Then there's a certain formula to calculate their overtime pay, and you see it there. It's C7. That's how much they make per hour. Times 40. That's their regular pay. Plus how much they get for overtime pay, and that's E7. You can put parentheses here. It always does multiplication and division before it does addition and subtraction. Sometimes you have, like I said, you have to put parentheses. If we wanted 40 to be added to E7 first, we would have to put that in parentheses, regardless of where on the line it is. If it's false, that means they didn't have any overtime hours, but so it's just B7 times C7. And click OK. And copy that down. Okay, that's all the if statements we're going to do. We've got net pay over here. The word net means subtract, so real quickly. Got the equal sign. That's their pay. Minus sign. Click on G7 for the deduction. Green, used to be green. Blue check mark. Copy it down. Go down here, get our totals, and well, it worked that time. Copy it over. Then basically you need to do some cleanup work. Notice I didn't do hours. Now, hours could actually have 5.2 hours, stuff like that on it. So you may need a decimal point over here. This down here is definitely money. You're dealing with people's money, and they do have cents. You don't want to cut the cents off. And then, of course, you would save the document.